Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a teacher at English in the City. Welcome to today's. Hi, Elena. How are you? It's good to see you again. Good to hear from you again. Today, we're doing focus activities 6-7, giving advice. So, we're going to talk about who we give advice to, possibly who asks us for advice, and how to give the best advice possible. Hey, Simone, how are you? It's good to hear from you too. Welcome. I hope you're doing okay today. This is definitely a new experience for all of us, but very, very exciting to say the least. So today we're talking about advice. We're talking about advice. And we're going to practice using phrases for giving advice and reassuring phrases that we can use when someone asks us for advice. Hi, Stephen. How are you? Good afternoon. Welcome. Because advice is something that usually we get when we don't want it. And people always seem to offer it, good or bad. Are you the kind of person who gives advice, or do people usually come to you for advice? If you're the kind of person that gives advice, who comes to you for advice? For example, often my children reluctantly ask me for advice simply because I'm older and I have more life experience. So they don't always want my advice, but my children usually ask me what I did or what would I do if I were them. Do you consider yourselves the people that give advice or the people that ask for advice? Let's make a list of the people that could ask us for advice. I said my children sometimes ask me. Hi, Christina, how are you? Welcome. Welcome to the group today. It's good to hear from you. My children can ask me for advice. Yes, Elena, it definitely depends on the situation. Hi, Sabrina, how are you? Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're talking about giving advice. Who asks you for advice? I said my children ask me for advice. Maybe friends can ask you for advice. Possibly your coworkers can ask you for advice. When they ask you for advice, do you give good advice or bad advice? Very good, Christina. A lot of times, younger people can ask for advice. I said before that my children often ask me for advice. And sometimes my students can ask me for advice. Yes, Elena, we all try to give good advice, but sometimes we don't always get good advice. Hi, Teresa. How are you? Good to hear from you again. Yes, often we tend to think we give good advice, but is it so? A lot of times we believe we are giving very good advice, but sometimes for the people getting our advice, it's not the same. Have you ever gotten bad advice? No, it's not easy to give advice. What phrases do we use to give advice if we think about when someone has asked us for advice? So, if we're going to give someone advice, what phrases can we use to introduce the idea of advice? You used to follow bad advice very easily. It seems that, Teresa, following bad advice is easier than following good advice. Yes, Sabrina, we use should. And Elena, we can also use I suggest. Yes, Teresa, when I was young, I used that advice quite often. Excellent, Stephen. I recommend. And Claudia, hi Claudia, how are you? If I were you, you should, you could. Notice that these are all modal verbs that we can use to give advice. Should, could, but they also have a different tone involved. And here's a list of phrases that we could use. You should. You could. Have you tried? Hi, Michelle. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. Welcome. Have you thought about? If I were you, or you shouldn't. See if we can recognize also the intensity of the advice that we're giving. For example, if you really want someone to follow your advice. Hi, Barbara, how are you? Welcome, good afternoon. If we really want someone to follow your advice, your expression tells them this is serious. You should do this. But if you want to leave the choice up to them, then you say, well, you could try this, but that's up to you. So a lot of times the modal verb that we use, depending on the situation, can either strongly encourage somebody or leave the choice up to them. You'd better. Very good, Teresa. That means that you're not obligating somebody, but you're letting them know that it's very important that they do it. Because if they don't do it, there are going to be consequences. In fact, you'd better is the advice I use often with my kids. For example, you'd better clean your room, or you better stop playing video games. Because that's a lot different than, well, you could clean your room, or have you tried stopping playing video games? So the tone is a little different there. Hi, Sabrina. Yes, ought to is another good modal verb to use, semi-modal, when we're giving advice. And Christina, maybe you can. Maybe you can also gives the choice up to the person that you're giving advice to. But it's personal in this case. In which case is it personal, do you mean, Sabrina? Because if we think about the situations where someone is giving us advice, at the doctor's office, possibly a lawyer, maybe our accountant, ought to we use for personal advice? Yes, if we're referring to ourselves. Excellent, Sabrina. That's a very good point. If we're giving advice to ourselves, for example, hi, Giacomo, welcome back. How are you? Like, I really ought to lose weight because summer is coming. Or, I ought to stop smoking because I know it's not good for me. So good point, Sabrina. When we give ourselves advice, then we can use ought to. But what if somebody comes to us for advice and they have a problem? Not just a situation where they want to know our opinion, like, should I wear blue or black to the party? Or how should I wear my hair? But what if they have a really serious problem? How do we make them feel better and give them advice? Can we think of some phrases we can use? If someone comes to you, like, look at the girls in the picture. Obviously, her friend is very upset about something. What do you say if a good friend or your brother or sister or maybe a relative comes to you and says, I have this really bad problem. I have a terrible situation. Can you give me advice? What are the phrases that you use in the beginning before you suggest something? Excellent, Christina. Don't be sad. Tell me what's happening. Tell me what's wrong. Or excellent, Claudia. You can tell them, don't worry. Very good, Giacomo. I'm sure it's all going to be okay. I'm sure all will be fine. Why don't we sit down and talk? So notice, thanks everybody for your contributions, that when we give advice, if someone is really sad, before we tell them, oh, well, you should do this, and have you considered, or why don't you? First, we tell them it's going to be okay. Don't be sad. Don't worry. Because that's also an important part of giving an advice. So these are different phrases that we can use. Don't worry. Don't stress about it. Everything will be okay. Or if we can relate, I've been in the same situation. One of the best phrases that you can use when you're giving someone advice is telling them that you understand. Even if you haven't experienced the same thing, you understand what they're feeling. If they're really anxious, or they're really sad, or they're very stressed about something. It's important that when we ask for advice, that we feel the other person understands what we're saying and what we're feeling, even if they haven't had the same experience. We have on the right side, we have 5 different examples. To know someone has had your same problem can make you feel better in a way. Yes, it does. Because if we've had a difficult experience or we've had something unexpected happen and we go to someone for advice, it's nice to know that we're not alone, that someone else has had a similar situation. I'm here to support you. Very good, Elena. Because if we know that someone has had the same experience and that they're there to help us, then it makes us feel better even before we get the advice. And this is also a good thing to keep in mind when we're giving advice, to not just express a few words and slap them on the back and be like, okay, let's get a drink sometime, see you soon. But actually to take the time to listen. Very good, Elena. Because if someone's had the same problem and someone takes the time to talk to us, then we don't feel alone in the situation that we're in. Here we have a list of situations or problems that some of us or someone we know might have. I have a big project to finish at work, and I don't know if I can finish by the deadline. I didn't pass my exam. I didn't get the job. My boyfriend or girlfriend and I had a terrible argument. My parrot is sick. Thinking about these different situations, what phrases would you use in each one? For example, if you are my friend and I am the person who needs advice, and I say, oh, I've got this incredible project at work and I don't know if I'm going to finish and I'm so stressed. And what am I going to do? And I don't have enough time. What phrases would you use to help me and then give me advice? Because I think a lot of us can understand how it feels to have a deadline. What's a deadline? A deadline is in when we know we have to finish something by a certain date, but we don't know if we can. You can have a deadline at work. You can have a deadline at school. Thank you, Sabrina. I'm going to try not to stress about it, but it's really hard because I don't sleep, I can't eat, and all the time I'm thinking about this project that I have to finish. Oh, Christina, I'll try not to worry, but it's not always easy when you have a lot of responsibility. Oh, Claudia, I understand. I have so much to do too. But don't worry, I'm sure you'll get it done in time. Well, thanks, Sabrina and Christina, because you comforted me. You made me feel better before you gave me advice. And then, Claudia, what did you tell me? You encouraged me. You said, I'm sure you'll get it done. Yes, Sabrina, I need to have some time to relax. Yes, I do. I think we could all use some time to relax. So it's important not just to make someone feel better, to comfort them. Say, don't stress, don't worry. And then you encourage them. I'm sure you'll get it done in time. And then possibly give them advice. We said that the phrases we can use to give advice are you should, you could, you might want to, or have you thought about? So if I have a big project to finish at work and I don't know if I can finish, and you've already comforted me and said, don't stress, Don't worry, I understand. And then you've encouraged me by saying, I'm sure you'll get it done. What advice can you give me on how to get it done? So now you want to help me be successful in getting my project finished. How can you help me get it finished? I have this great big project to finish at work, but I get up every morning at 11 o'clock. I watch some movies on Netflix until I get hungry. Then I usually make some soup, have a sandwich. After I eat, I'm tired, so I take a nap. I have this great big project to finish for work, and I don't know how to finish it. Can you give me advice? What can I do? What should I do? Or what would you do if you were me in order to get my project finished? Because we've said before that giving advice isn't always easy. Good time management can help us to get our job done in time. Elena, that's so true. I wish I can manage my time better. Yes, I should organize my time in a much better way. Why don't I get up early? Yes, I guess that would be a good idea if I got up earlier in the morning. You should think of priorities for your project. Thank you, Giacomo, being very clear and direct. You should think of your priorities. And my priorities are not watching Netflix or making sandwiches and soup. Let's try to do it together. Elena, that's so sweet. Maybe you could come to my house. You can help me get my project done. We can work together. So great, you guys. These are basically 3 steps on how you comfort somebody to make them feel better when they're having a difficult time. You encourage them by telling them it's going to be okay, you'll get it done. And then you give them the practical advice, just as Giacomo says, let me help you with something. Yes, you can help me. Let me figure out what it is. We can try to split your job in parts. Okay, Giacomo, that's a very good offer. If you can help me do something in my house, for example, then I'll have more time to work on my project. Or, Elena, if we take the responsibility of my project and we divide it up in little pieces, then it'll be easier to focus on each piece individually instead of the entire project altogether. Set yourself goals. Claudia, that's very, very important. Because if we don't have goals, and these goals can be daily goals or even during the day we have goals, then it's extremely difficult to achieve them because we don't have any direction. All right, I'm your friend and I need advice. I've just had a terrible, terrible argument with my boyfriend. And I think this is it. I think it's over. But I really, really love him and I don't want to lose him. What would you do if you were me? How can I get him back? What advice would you give me? Now think of the 3 steps that we just considered. First, you want to comfort me. So maybe give me a tissue so I'll stop crying. Then you want to encourage me. Let me know that the situation is not completely gone. There might be a solution. And then practical advice. So my boyfriend and I have just had a terrible, terrible argument. In fact, he packed his suitcase and he said, bye. I don't know if I can be with you anymore. So I'm devastated. But don't stress about it. Wait, Christina, everything will be okay. I'm sure it will, but I love him so much. Don't stress about it. He doesn't deserve you. Thank you, Elena. These men nowadays, they just expect so much. So maybe it's better. You should buy some gifts for him and give him a kiss. Then he will get back with me. Thank you, Stephen. I should buy gifts for him. Christina, talk a bit with him. With patience. Very nice. So between buying the gifts for the man and possibly talking with him with patience, which one do you think is better? I will find another man for you. Okay. I like that advice the best. Find me another man. Don't worry, you can talk with him. It'll be okay. I know. I think it's going to be okay. Thank you, Sabrina. Claudia, please don't cry. He'll come back, I'm sure. And if he does, you need to work out your problems. Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. That's really what I needed to hear. I'm feeling much better now. And I'm sure he's going to come back. I'm sure he's going to come back. But if he doesn't, then I'll just find a way to keep going and to get on. Thank you, guys. This is great, great advice. So remember that when we're giving advice, especially with to someone that has a problem, a sentimental problem, we want to comfort them. Don't worry, don't stress. It's going to be okay. Encouragement. You'll find another man. He doesn't deserve you. And then practical advice. Talk to him. Buy him presents. There are plenty more fish in the sea. I know, but Claudia, I want a man, not a fish. Okay, what other advice can we give? Here we have a group of people. We have different images of these people. Okay, and we have a couple in the top corner. We have a couple, looks like a mother and a daughter. We have a young couple on a motorcycle. We have a young girl holding a folder. Looks like there are papers in there. And possibly a new mother with her baby. So these are different situations that people can be in, that we can find ourselves in, or that maybe our friends can be in this situation. Let's take the first one. If you look at the image on the top, we have an older woman and looks like it could be her daughter, possibly her granddaughter. What kind of problems might they have? If you are the younger girl in the picture and your mother is older, what problems might you have with your older mother? Because especially if you're an adult, think of situations, difficult situations that might come up with you and your mom. And there might be other situations if you're still in school. For example, if you're younger and you're still in school, maybe you come home too late at the weekend. If you're older and you're both adults, meaning you're an adult and your mom is obviously an older adult, what might you have to deal with? Okay, maybe you're 45 and you don't have a best friend. A BF is a best friend, right? Okay, so what? All right, here's another situation. I'm 45 years old and I'm always with my mom. In these days, my mother doesn't want to stay at home. Well, Elena, I understand that situation. My mother is, your mother doesn't want to stay home now. Yes. In fact, my children were upset with me this morning because I left. And they said, you need to stay home. Christina, you have a boyfriend. Is that a problem with your mom? What kind of problem might you have because you have a boyfriend, because you don't have a boyfriend? What could be a possible problem? Claudia, very good. If we see the picture on the bottom with the mother and the baby, there's no sleep for new parents. Today's your dad doesn't want to stay home either. It's hard. Listen, I mean, I appreciate that all of you are here with me today, but it's difficult to stay in the house all the time. It is. Giacomo, maybe your mom doesn't like your boyfriend or friends. Okay, that's an excellent situation. So if we take the image, the first image of these four, where we see the older woman and the younger woman, and you say, okay, maybe my mom doesn't like my boyfriend or my friends. A newly married couple accepting your partner's bad habits. Okay, is that the picture with the couple on the motorcycle? Very good. So here we already have a few situations where we need advice. If your mother, no, if my mother doesn't like my friends, okay, so it's difficult for me to invite my friends over because my mother doesn't like them. What advice, practical advice, can you give me? Should I find new friends? Should I find a new mom? What could I do if my mom doesn't like my friends? No leaving dirty laundry on the floor. Yes, that's good advice for my kids. I have laundry everywhere in my house. First, ask the reason. Very good, Christina. So if my mom doesn't like my friends, then maybe I could ask her why. Let's try to use our advice language in giving me help. Try to understand why your mother doesn't like them. Very good, Teresa. You could show her they are nice people. So here, Teresa is using could to give me advice. So I'm saying, I don't know what to do. My mom hates my friends. Well, you could show your mom that your friends are nice. Listen, Mom, leave your friend. Mom is, wait, Stephen, listen to my mom. Oh, my mom is always right. What? Wait, I'm going to get back to you in a second, Stephen. Giacomo, ask her why. Is there something she can see which I can't? Okay, Giacomo, this is excellent advice. Very good advice. Can you use the correct structure? Okay, so you want me to ask my mom why. Are you going to tell me, why don't you ask her why? You could ask her why. You should ask her why. You'd better ask her why. How would you give this to me in good advice structure? Okay, Stephen, you said I need to listen to my mom and leave my friends because my mom is always right. Wow, that's a tough one. All right. Now, if I'm going to listen to my mother all the time, and I encourage all of you young ones to listen to your moms all the time. Okay, then which which modal verb would you use? Could you use? Should you use to give me advice? Because you want me to listen to my mom. You know, it looks like Stephen and Giacomo are in agreement. Because Stephen says, you should listen to your mother. I should listen to my mom. Okay. And Giacomo says, maybe my mom can see something that I can't. Ah, could you? You could ask her. Well, you could ask your mom. For example, you could ask your mother, does she see something in your friends that you don't? The difference between should and could, as we said before, is that should is definitely more determined. If I use should, I really want you to follow my advice. If I say, well, you could ask her, you could ask your mom, if you think that's a good idea, then I'm definitely leaving more of the choice up to you. Let's take another situation, okay? If we want to consider someone, number 3, wait a minute. You should tell your mom why your friends are important to you. Ah, that's very nice advice. Because maybe my mother doesn't realize how important my friends are, or why certain friends are important to me. Yes, Elena, I happen to agree with you that mom is always right. But that's because I'm a mom, so I think I'm always right. I don't know if my kids agree with me, though. You've got to listen to your mom, but not always. Well, today, seeing that you're a mom, do you want your daughter to always listen to you? I want my kids to always to listen to me, but they don't seem to want to listen all the time. Because if we see here that giving advice, especially in a family situation, is a lot more difficult than it is. This is not true. Mom is not always right. That's true. And sometimes I make mistakes. I'm sure everybody understands. Nobody here is perfect. We all make mistakes sometimes. But for sure, mom always takes care of you. Wow, this is getting really emotional here, but that's true. So even if your mom doesn't always, or you don't always agree with your mom, her intentions are always sincere. That's definitely true. But the point is this, is that if I have a problem with my mother and you are giving me advice, that you can encourage me strongly, as Giacomo did. You should talk to your mom. Hey, Roberta, hi, how are you? Welcome. Glad you can make it this afternoon. This afternoon, we're giving advice. We're learning how to give good advice because it's easy to give any kind of advice. but we want to focus on giving good and effective advice. Okay, so let's take this situation. Look at number 3, a person who has just moved to your city. If a person is new in their town or city, what advice might they need? Think of what you might need when you first arrive to a city or a town. Do you need directions? Do you need certain types of information? This person is lost. Well, yes, I guess someone who's just moved to Prazo in this moment wouldn't be the best choice in real estate. Okay, I really would like to introduce you to my friends. Very nice, Elena. So maybe a person who has just moved to a new city needs to meet people. Or as Claudia said, you should join a gym. You might meet new friends. Excellent. We'll wait for you in English in the City. Yes, we're all here waiting for you, arms open. You must visit the Modern Art Museum. Definitely. I need to know the bus routes. Roberta, you need to know how to get around by bus. Okay, so as Roberta said, she's the one who needs the advice, so she needs to know something. Thanks, Stephen. You should find friends of this city. They will help you to know this city. All right, Stephen, that's a good point, but I just got here. I don't know anyone. How could I meet people? You should communicate with your neighbor. Michelle, are you suggesting that I just go knock on the door and introduce myself to my neighbor? Hey, Roberta, I needed to know the bus routed. Yes, buses are so important. Yes, they are. So I'm new to the city. I don't know how to get around. Can you give me any advice? Why don't you go out to a pub? All right, but I don't want to go alone, Giacomo. Why not? Bake them a cake. Are we still talking about my neighbors? That's an excellent way to make friends. Okay, so Claudia, if you're suggesting that I go to my neighbor's house, then, and I have a cake, what advice are you giving me? You should bake them a cake. You should bake your neighbors a cake. Or, why don't you bake your neighbors a cake? Have you thought about baking your neighbors a cake so you can make some friends and then go to the pub? You can meet new friends at the pub, says Giacomo. Beer can help. Well, I think it depends on what you're drinking, I guess. We don't want to make certain types of friends. We want to make good friends. Beer can help me make friends. Hey, Christina. Tell her where the supermarket, city center, or shopping malls. Okay, so I'm new to this town. I don't have any friends. And unfortunately, my neighbor is not at home because I baked a cake, but nobody answered the door. Could you tell me where some shopping centers are? Good beer friends. I don't even know what to say about that, Giacomo. Good beer friends. Is that good beer, good friends? Or if I drink beer, I make good friends. In Campi Bisenzio, okay. And I could also go to the Gigi. All right, so we see that if I'm a person that's just moved to the city, I'm new in the city, I can, what's advice that we're giving to this person? You can go to the pub. You could meet people at the pub. Or you should go to the Gigi. There are a lot of people at the Gigi. Thanks, Elena, in Campi Bisenzio. No, but we won't go to the Gigi now. We're talking about hypothetically after this situation, then we can go back to the Gigi and make friends. Very good. Or Christina says, you could use Google Maps. That can help you get to the Gigi to make friends. Thanks, Roberta. Join a club or group that you are interested in, like a hiking club or art classes. That's a great idea. So if I'm asking you, how can I make friends? Then you tell me, well, just as Roberta said, you could join a club or a group. You could start taking art classes, or you could start studying English and you can make tons of new friends speaking English. Michelle says, I think it means the friends you meet for beer. Good beer friends. Okay, so these are the people that I only meet when I want to drink beer. So I need to find good beer friends. That's a very interesting spin on it. I'll have to write that down. Good beer friends. Ha ha ha. All the people want to take her to hang. You could check the library program. Yes, a lot of people don't consider the library. It's a great place to meet people. Wine tasting? Absolutely. Here I am. Okay, Teresa, there you are. Here I am too. Good beer friends. And Claudia says, which is excellent advice, my best friend met her husband at English school. Excellent. So if you're saying, well, I don't have any friends, I need to know what to do, I need to know where to go so I can meet people. And then Claudia says, well, you could start going to English school because my best friend met her husband. Yes, Teresa, you are. You're not just a good beer friend. You are the best beer friend. Really. And I mean that from the bottom of my glass. Truly. I know, Christina. I know. There's a history. There's a whole history behind it. And I mean, but Teresa, she knows quality beer. It's not just about drinking any old kind of beer. You have to also understand beer as well. Okay, so one advice, you are my friend. I have a situation and I now need advice from you. Let's take into consideration the modal verbs that we're using. You could, you should, have you thought about, you ought to, or you'd better, which is very, very strong, okay? I'm thinking about buying a new car. Yeah. The car that I have is, let's say it's midlife. And so before it completely dies, I already want to have in my mind an idea of the kind of car I could buy. Do you have any advice for me? What kind of car should I get? Or should I just drive the car that I have until it dies? Should I buy a new car or a used car? For number 4. Thanks, Roberta. Your advice is that I should have been more careful. Ha, ha, ha. Thank you. But right now we're talking about cars, Roberta. We're talking about buying new cars. But I will. I'm definitely going to be more careful. I should invest my money. Okay. If I want a new car, Sabrina, I should invest my money in what? You could keep the old car until it dies. Okay, Elena. All right, I guess I could, but if I keep the old car until it dies, then I'm left all of a sudden with no car. Should I start looking at a car before it dies, or should I just wait until I'm on foot to get a new car? If I live in the center of the city, maybe it's not even important. Do I even need a car? You don't care about cars. Okay, Elena, thank you. Elena doesn't care about cars, so I know I don't care that much about cars either, but I realize that I need a car to get around. So should I consider methane or GPL or maybe an electric car? I hear that electric cars are pretty amazing. Or possibly a hybrid car. No, I'm actually considering buying a new car. This is a real situation here. Because I've already had my car, GPL. Also, I have a friend who has GPL. All right, Sabrina, you're suggesting that I get a GPL car. Can you give that to me in advice formula? Thank you, Barbara. Barbara, that's another vote for GPL. Sabrina says electric is so expensive. Okay, now Sabrina brought up a good point. That if you're going to advise me not to do something. So Barbara says GPL. Sabrina says, whoa, electric car is expensive. So you could also give negative advice in the sense that, well, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Alana says a hybrid might be a good idea. I've heard a lot about the hybrids. I should go to a few places, says Roberta, and get a lot of advice from different people. But Roberta, I'm here with all of you now. So there's so many of us. Maybe between all of us, we can find a solution to my car situation. All right, thank you, Sabrina. Sabrina says you should buy a GPL car. She's determined on that. And Michelle, thanks, Michelle, for your input. I think it's better to buy electric car because in the future, all cars will be electric. Really? You really think so, Michelle? Elena, do you have a hybrid? Oh, Elena, you have a hybrid car. So what do you think, Elena? Should I buy hybrid or electric? Because Michelle says in the future, all cars are going to be electric. All cars in the future are going to be electric. Hey, Roberta. I think it would be a great idea to buy a Harley. Okay, is that a Harley with a sidecar? Is that a Harley with just me on it? You think a hybrid? Okay. You think Michelle means that hybrid cars are going to be, those are the cars of the future, not the electric cars. Okay, well, I've heard a lot now about hybrids. I have, and it's definitely something that I want to consider. Oh, thank you, Barbara. Barbara says that she has a GPL car. Now, notice what Barbara did in her advice here. Thank you, Barbara, very much. Barbara has put herself in my situation. So she says, I understand, and I have a GPL car, and it's been a fantastic experience for me. And then she also gives proof to support her advice. So she says, I only spent 20 euro for 1 week. Wow, so you don't spend very much at all on gas if you have GPL. So now I think we're trying to decide between GPL or hybrid. Does anybody have any models in mind? Because everybody says, okay, this is the type of car we want. We want hybrid or GPL or electric. No one said methane, by the way, because I drive a car that runs on methane. Thank you, Teresa. Teresa, she just brought us back to planet Earth. How about a bicycle? Yes, probably in these days, if you are concentrated in the city center, probably a bicycle is your best bet. It's good for you, and it's good for the environment, or a skateboard. Well, why not roller skates? Why not roller skates? I can get around town on roller skates. So I think the important thing, thank you guys for all of your wonderful advice. Okay, so now I'm up in the air. I'm just trying to decide between hybrid or GPL or bicycle or skateboard. Yes, Roberta, we definitely should take care of the planet. I think that's a priority. Barbara says hybrid cars are wonderful. Hybrid cars are a wonderful idea, but the car goes 200 kilometers an hour. Is that the speed of the car, Barbara? It goes 200 kilometers an hour. That's amazing. Wait, Sabrina, you think it's a good idea? What's a good idea? What's a good idea? And Michelle says to buy new feet. Okay, thanks, Michelle. I'm just going to cut off these old ones and I'll get some new feet. But I mean, buying a car, as you hear from all the different ideas, which is another reason why it's so difficult to get good advice, because it depends on who you ask, the kind of advice that you're going to get. So just to do a little bit of a recap before we sign off for today. Today's focus, we talked about giving advice. What are the phrases we use to give advice? You should, you could. Have you thought about if we want to give stronger advice, you ought to or you'd better? A new pair of shoes. In fact, yes, I believe in spending money on shoes. I always believe that. So if we're giving advice, should, could, I would if I were you. If someone has a difficult situation, then you comfort them first. Don't worry, don't stress. It's going to be okay. Give them encouragement. I know you can do this. Everything's going to be fine. And then you can give them practical advice, as we did with the cars. You could do this. You should do that. If I were you, I would do it this way. So we see that giving advice isn't always easy. But if we use the right words to give advice, to give good advice, then we can ensure that maybe people will take the advice that we have. Because it's not easy to give good advice, as we've heard today. Well, listen, everybody, I want to thank everybody for their participation this afternoon. It has been a great, great experience. And I want everyone to have a wonderful afternoon. Keep being positive. Okay. Thanks again. Thanks again for contributing, and I will see you soon. Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon.